Right, I'm going to hand you over to Chris now. I hope you enjoyed today's webinar and I will catch up with you at the end.
Thank you, Helen. So, good morning US folk and good afternoon UK folk. I'm just going to cycle through a couple of slides here and we're going to move into our first section today. It's going to be a fairly short webinar. It's going to be about 20 minutes, and of course we're recording this for later viewing as well. But if those of you that want to stick around for another maybe half hour afterwards, we've got another option for Q&A at the end, so let's do that. In the meantime, I'll keep an eye out for any questions that come in, as Helen said, on the chat box too. So let's go and have a look at the Brightpearl account we're going to be using as part of this session today. It's going to be a company called Indo-Pacific, and Indo-Pacific is a retailer and wholesaler of kayak equipment. And we've got a couple of different websites plugged into this, this back office. These are actually running on Shopify, but could be on any e-commerce platform. And they show you the kind of things we can be doing with different products, different sales, and so on. So Indo Retail is our retail outlet, and what we're looking at here is a PFD, a personal flotation device with sizes, colors, and so on. And then across on the wholesale website, we've got similar products, different prices, but the user actually has to log in to browse. So we've got a B2B and a B2C website. If we go back into Brightpearl, I'm hoping that most of you are fairly familiar with your Brightpearl accounts already, so we'll go rapidly into some fairly complex concepts. And we'll have a look at the channels we have set up. So these two Shopify stores, or these e-commerce platforms, are plugged in at the top. We've got our Indo Retail store and our Indo Wholesale store. We've also got a point of sale outlet. So this business actually runs a retail store in London, and they've got their POS here. And we've set that up as a separate sales channel. And then we have 3 separate miscellaneous channels, and these are also really important to use wherever possible in your business, because it lets you segment the sales based on where they came from. So telephone orders we've split into retail and wholesale, and then we've also got trade fairs here just to show you the kind of things that it can be used for. So that's an overview of what the company does. Let's say we've got maybe 6 staff in the business, we've got a couple of hundred products, and maybe we do 20 to 30 orders per day. So that gives you an indication of the kind of scale of this particular demo setup. If we have a look at the products we've got already in here, I'll take you to the product list. We've got a catalog, we've got these personal flotation devices which synchronize with our e-commerce platform, we've got some kayaks, and pretty empty product set at the moment. We've only got 26 items. We can see that these PFDs, the flotation devices, are available in a couple of different, well, more than a couple of different options. We've got sizes, small, large, extra large, and colors as well. And what we say here is that this is a product group. These have all got the same name, and therefore they're in a group of products which on an e-commerce store would appear on the same web page. So here, for example, we've got our different sizes and our different colors. And that's very useful. It's effectively a hierarchical structure whereby this product has variants, and these variants have their attributes. So in a similar way to most systems work. What I'm going to do is show you how to create now a fairly complex new product with what we call dimensions, 4 dimensions. This is a 2-dimensional product group. If I go and have a look at the variants view, edit variants, we can see here that on the left-hand side we have size, and across the top we have color. And that explains probably more clearly why I'm calling it a 2-dimensional product group. It's because we've only got size and color. So although there are 20 products in the group, there are only 2 options, which is size and color. So let's create a new product, and it's going to be a wetsuit. And the wetsuit is going to have size, length, thickness, and chest size. I already have a product type for wetsuits, and we'll come back to why I'm using product types just after this, but for the moment we'll just create the product in the product type of wetsuits. So we start off by going product, new product. We choose a name, pretty straightforward. Product type is wetsuits, brand, we'll call it other, and we'll put it in parts, and we'll give it a SKU. Now each variant is going to have its own SKU, so we'll call this the SKU stub, and then when we actually work with the variants we're going to put options in such as small, 5mm, and so on. but the wetsuit stub is what I'll put here. And I'm going to just have a look at the stock inventory tab. Yes, I want to manage stock levels for this item. This wetsuit weighs, what does it weigh? Let's say 1,250 grams. You'll note that there's no unit on here. And Brightpearl does not have a concept of weight units. You can use anything you like as long as you're consistent across the whole data set, and it can be anything you like. We don't need to worry too much at the moment about minimum stock levels and reorder quantities. I am going to set different prices, however. And I've mentioned briefly that this is a retail and wholesale business, and we can see here that we've got price lists dedicated to retail and wholesale. But there's also a cost price, which is what we buy it for, and then there's another discount level pricing here, and we'll probably come back to this in a future top tips webinar. But for the moment, let's say this wetsuit costs us £55 to buy, and we're going to retail that at about double up, so let's go 110. And then the wholesale is going to be, let's say we make it £70. Wholesale can also have a volume discount where if you buy 10, you get them at 65. And you can see how you can expand that out as a concept. We won't worry about a description. Again, we won't worry about custom fields. Let's assign it to a supplier, and we're not going to worry about bundles. And what I'm doing here is creating the first product, and we're going to copy this product across other ones by editing or creating the variants. And if there are any questions that do come in, just drop them in the chat and I'll answer them in the right time. So what we do is we hit create variants here. This is where we get to choose our sizes and colors. But so far in my system, I've only got size available for wetsuits, and we were going to create with size, length, thickness and chest. So let's choose size, and we'll go, what was it, length, and chest size, and thickness. So we already have sizes in the system, small, medium and large, but actually these wetsuits are going to be sized differently. So let's go with 120 and 140, and then two different lengths, so we'd have short and long. We'd have two different chest sizes, 42-inch and 44-inch, some big fellas, and then we'll create thicknesses. So we'll go with a 4-5, so 4mm, 5mm, and we'll go 5mm, 6mm because it's cold up here in England. So this is a 4-dimensional product set. If I click next, it's actually going to create, it's going to copy this first product a certain number of times to create all of the different variants of these products. And you can see here we've got 4 dimensions. So chest size on the very left, and then size, and then this first set of columns here is the length, long and short, and then the outer set of columns here is the thicknesses. So that is a 4-dimensional product group. And Brightpearl supports up to 4 dimensions because when you get to 5th, 6th and so on, it gets pretty complicated. You can see there's a product that exists for every combination of variants here. And these 16 products can be viewed in the product list, which is a screen we saw before. So here, for example, is the men's wetsuit, 120, long, 42, 4/5. And if you wanted to find all your wetsuits, you just do a product search for wetsuit. And if the customer is just looking for something that's a 42-inch, you can just click 42. Or if they're looking for short, you click short, and it actually filters the list to show just the short ones. So that's a handy tip you might not have spotted yet. You can actually click that to filter the list. But for the moment, let's go in and work with this group. So if we go and edit variants, we can see that there's a number of different things we can do along the top. You can edit the SKUs, price list SKUs, the barcode, perhaps set the minimum stock levels or reorder quantities, and edit the prices as well. So let's say we want to change the retail price for a couple of them, so the 44-inch might be a little bit more expensive. We can just do that here quite easily in a grid format. Okay, so you might have spotted the eagle eyes amongst you that there's a little tick box down here. Use grid format when adding an item to orders. And this is something that automatically gets ticked in Brightpearl when your product group is more than, I think it's 12 products, I'm not exactly sure of the number, but when you've got more than 12 products in a group, it's quite hard to work with them in a list format. So just got a question come in from Jackie. Do all variants have the same SKU? At the moment, no. So if we go to the SKU tab, you'll see that it's only that first product we created that has the same SKU. And now is probably a good opportunity to talk a little bit more about SKUs. It's really important that every single variant has its own SKU. If you're coming from the clothing industry, you might be more used to having a SKU for the whole group, which is perhaps called a style code. But each individual variant needs to have a unique identifier, whether that's a UPC or a barcode or something like that. It has to be unique per variant, because when you go to your e-commerce integrations, your stock control even, every combination of options is a real physical product, and therefore it needs its own SKU, and that actually stands for stock keeping unit. So it's important that each variant has its own SKU. And for those of you that haven't yet seen it, there's a really, really useful document all about SKUs in our Commerce Acceleration 101 area of the website. And if you go to brightpearl.com/CA101, it'll take you to this page. And you'll need to register first, but there's a whole load of really, really useful content in here. And one specifically is understanding SKUs. This talks about what you can and can't do with SKUs, recommends, for example, not to start with a 0, but there's some really useful stuff in there to read. So what I'd probably do here is I would choose stub, apply it to all of my variants, and then I could work through them gradually, either doing them one at a time like this, or do it by spreadsheet. So that's the way to make sure all the different products have got their own SKU. So Brightpearl doesn't enforce unique SKUs, so you need to be fairly careful to make sure that these SKUs don't exist anywhere else in the system. So you could go long 4, 5. And note I don't put a slash in the SKU. That's just fairly good practice to avoid those kind of characters. Okay, so we've got another question from Lawrence. With a Magento integration, can you set up a product that's sold in variants as separate SKUs without variants and then use Magento to configure the products and link to a configurable product? Yes. So what we're saying here is for our Magento integration, which has a slightly different concept of variants, is that each Brightpearl product, effectively each Brightpearl variant, each of these 16 items, links to a matching simple product in Magento. So each Magento simple product has its own SKU. This is a key part of the Brightpearl Magento integration, is understanding this. The Brightpearl product links to a Magento simple product. And the Brightpearl product group, so this group of wetsuits, links to a Magento configurable product. And there's a couple of videos I think on our YouTube channel that show that, and there's also a Getting Started with Magento guide. So Lawrence, if you've not seen that Getting Started with Magento, then just email success@Brightpearl and we'll send it over to you. Okay, so editing variants. You'll notice that long is before short, and perhaps I might actually want to show short before long. The numerical ones are all appearing in the right order anyway, but I might want to resequence this for better appearance, and it's actually easier to see this with our other product. So it was a flotation device that was in small, medium and large. So if we go and edit the variants for this product, you'll see that large comes before medium and small, and that's a bit of a strange order to have. What I want to do is I want to show S before medium and before large. And this is just alphabetical at the moment, and when you create them, it lists them automatically in alphabetical order. So to change these, I need to go into the setup area and resequence them. And that's something that most people don't spot automatically, so it's useful for me to show you as part of this webinar. If we go to Setups, Products and Inventory, Options, and then you'll see that we've got 6 sizes here. The 120 and the 140 that we just created, and then the large, medium, small and extra large. All I need to do is actually just drag these into the right order here. So just drag small up, and then we'll drag medium up, small, medium, large, extra large, and then when I go back into the variants edit for this product, edit variants, you'll see we've now got small, medium, large and extra large. So that's well worth remembering once you've done your product creation. Okay, so Alex, you're saying it's very time consuming creating unique SKUs for each invariant. And yes, that was exactly what I was going to show you next, is how to do this in a spreadsheet. So we can either create products by spreadsheet or we can update products by spreadsheet. And for this particular tip, I'm just going to show you how to update these products by spreadsheet. So the first thing we need to do is create what we call a data map, because Brightpearl lets you update part of the products. You don't have to update the whole product at once. So let's go into Setup, and then on the left-hand side, Data/Import and Import Products. So this is where you go to update products as well, because we're importing a spreadsheet. There's a couple of data maps I've put in here already, and a data map is effectively a set of columns. Let's create a new data map. We're going to use the Brightpearl product ID, so let's just choose that here. So we've added product ID as a column, and we're going to update the SKU. So let's call it something sensible, update SKU from product ID. Looks like I've used that before, and save. So if we now go to import, you can see that there are two columns that we need to put in our spreadsheet. Column A is the Brightpearl product ID and column B is the SKU. If I export a sample file, it gives me an Excel file, and you can see it's just giving me a couple of column headers. So let's take that product group, that wetsuit, and let's actually assign SKUs in Excel. So the quickest way to do this is to export those. Just do a product search for wetsuit, and this is bringing all 16 up, which is good. Let's export these to Excel. It gives me a file which I can download. We'll open that up, and you can see here are the product ID and SKU columns that were only partially completed from the work I was doing in the actual interface. So let's get rid of all these other columns. As it happens, these two already match those in the sample spreadsheet, so I don't need to worry about keeping this sample spreadsheet anymore. So let's just get rid of that. And what we can do is we can put the SKUs in here. Now, depending on how you run your business, you could either have a very long descriptive SKU, or you could just have a numeric SKU effectively. And what we could do is have something like this. So wetsuit product type 1028 through 1043. We're just using the product ID there as an example. So you're guaranteed to be unique if you do something like that. If you really wanted to, you could do a concatenate, and let's go with wetsuit that there, and it'll automatically do it for you. Or you could do something like that. So it's really useful to get to know Excel, because there's a lot of stuff you can do very, very quickly with Brightpearl in Excel. And there's some very useful functions. There's concatenate, there's VLOOKUP. Probably we're going to have a separate webinar on how to use Excel for Brightpearl. I think that would be very useful. So this is a spreadsheet that we're going to import with a product ID and update the SKU. So let's just save this. Where are we going to go? Window. So update SKU from product ID. If you're on a Mac, you need to be very careful about what Excel version you use, and our documentation is the best place to go for that. So brightpearl.com is our support area. So we have a spreadsheet. Let's import it. Let's go Setup. On the left-hand side, Data, Import, Import Products, and then Update SKU from Product ID. Import values, email me a report, it's quite nice. We're going to update only. If we were going to create products with a spreadsheet, we'd need way more columns than this. Let's choose a file to import, update SKU from product ID, and upload the spreadsheet. And we can now see that 16 products have been updated. And if we now do a product search for wetsuit, we can see all the SKUs down the left-hand side assigned to those wetsuits appropriately. So hopefully that's given you an idea of the kind of things you can update very, very quickly by spreadsheet. And just to show you the kind of things that you can put in that data map, let's go to the data map screen. So if we add a new data map, you can edit the product description, the weight, the barcodes, whether it's tracked for stock or not, tax classes, nominal codes, various different meta information, the inventory location, reorder levels, prices. So this is one way to manage prices very easily, or multiple prices at once. And here we've got the options as well. So if you're creating new products, we've got these new options and values that we had created before. So there's a lot you can do with spreadsheets, well worth looking at. So that's pretty much taken me to the end of what I'd like to show you with products today. There's a lot to show, of course, but we don't want to go into too much detail today. We're going to be covering products a little bit and then orders a little bit. So we had a look at product groups, product variants, and then we also saw that there was a little tick to use grid mode. I haven't shown you what that does yet. So here, use grid format when adding this item to orders. So let's buy some of those wetsuits from a supplier. So that's adding to a purchase order. We'll go purchases, new purchase order, and what have we got? Supplier company. This is an empty purchase order. And normally if I search for a product on the left-hand side, like say the kayaks, it shows every variant of the kayaks as its own row. So here we've got the blue, the yellow, the sunrise, the ocean, different colors, and I can see how many we've got on hand. But you can imagine that if you've got 20 or 30 different variants within a product group, this can get very cumbersome to try and find out exactly whether it's the 3mm or the 4mm or the small or the medium, which is why when we go to one of these grid products where we tick that box, so the wetsuit, you can see that we need to click to add this product using the grid. So if I click that, it actually takes me to what we call the size color matrix to add to the order. And here I can just run through this very quickly, go, okay, I'll have one of them, two of them, two of them, one of them, 1, 2, 2, 1. So typical retail environment where you're selling to maybe a customer that's buying a size range, and add to order. So there, I've very quickly added a whole range of products to this particular order in one go using the size color matrix. And that's what that tick box does. It shows basically just a single line when you add rows for the wetsuit. But let's take that away. What I'm going to do now is actually receive some of this into stock so you can see where else we have the color size matrix. Okay, so we've got a question from Matt. Can the grid only be used where there are variants? Yes, that's right. So you've got a product group there, and those are variants within a product group. There are other ways to do a similar thing where products are not variants. So say take an example where you might want to have all of those kayaks in one place to add. So almost like a pick list, a common pick list of items. You do that with a category. So in a similar way, you can actually open that batch add window by clicking this, and then you'd actually type a couple of spaces in here and search for all of your parts. Let's say it was all your kayaks parts, you bring them up in here, or your Shopify products, where are we, search, and here you could do a similar thing. So for all the kayaks you can go 2, and then batch add. That adds them to the order in a similar kind of way. So you'd group them there maybe by a category or a keyword or something like that. And there might be different ways or different reasons you want to do that, so give us a shout if there's something else that needs a bit more detail. So let's receive the inventory on this purchase order. We'll receive it into our main warehouse, and let's say we've received everything apart from the 120 long 44-inch 4.5, and we haven't received any of them. Submit that, receives all the inventory in. We can see that the purchase order is only partially received. So that's blue rather than green. Let's say a customer phones up and they want to know whether we've got the 44 thick, chest size, 120, whatever the wetsuit is. They're very complicated products. I'm struggling, and I even know this product data set. So they phone up and they say, okay, I want variant X. I can actually click any of these to open up the sort of the query screen here, where I can see for my London warehouse, I've not got any. If I flip this to my warehouse, it's very easy for the operator on the phone to see what I've got in stock and what I've got on hand of every single combination. So let's say the customer wants a 42-inch short, or even a 42-inch, they want one of these ones, and we don't have any, but what we do have is easy ability to see some other variants, so we can sell them on one of the ones that we do have. With sizes, of course, that's less relevant, but perhaps with colors, you might be able to still capture the sale because you know you've got a very similar product. Or even you could flip to a different warehouse and say, okay, sir, we don't have it in today, but we can get it from our other store overnight for you. So instant accessibility to lots and lots of variant information there. Okay, so Lawrence is asking, can you update the grid using spreadsheet import? No, you would have to call up every product to set to use the grid. Brightpearl automatically sets the grid if you've got products with, I think it's more than 12 or 16 variants in the grid. If, however, you want all of your products to be set to use grid, then I'm sure our support team will be able to do something there for you. We can just set them all to yes. And then Alex, wow, we've got lots of questions coming in today. Alex is asking, why does Brightpearl require unique product names? So this is a good question, actually. And we group products when they have the same name. And we do that to save a lot of time. There has to be something to group all these products together. Magento, which is an e-commerce platform, you actually have to manually create another entity called a configurable product and then manually assign all the components, all the variants into that, which is a very time-consuming way of doing things. Most other e-commerce platforms automatically group based on some attribute. So Shopify groups on what's called a handle, and Brightpearl groups on the product name. So that's just the attribute we've chosen to use as the grouping variable. And if we actually go into this product and change the name, you'll see that all variants in the group also change their name. So this is a 2013 model, which takes us back to the product list. And you can see that all of these different wetsuits now have been updated with their own name. If you find yourself in that scenario by giving another product the same name, then there are two ways to break these out. If everybody's okay just working with products, then I think I might just continue for the next few minutes, and we'll close off the webinar with just products, and then we'll do sales orders in the next session. It seems like it's been pretty useful for most people just to focus on one area in detail. So I'll show you how to break this product group into multiple product groups. One way is to open the product up and change the name and update this particular item without updating the other sisters. So sisters is an old name for variants. We used to call them sisters as part of a family. So if we just update this without updating the other variants, you'll see that this effectively breaks this into its own product group. There. So only the top item's been changed here. And if I go to edit the variants, it'll be a fairly bizarre product, which is a four-dimensional product with only one variant, but you can see the principle. And similarly, when we go into the old product group, the 2013 model, there'll be a gap where that little guy disappeared. So that has now moved out of this product group into its own product group. So you can do that in the interface. You can also do this by spreadsheet. So let's do that. Let's go and view these 2013 wetsuits, export them to a spreadsheet, and we're going to rename them in Excel. So I suspect it's this one. There we go. We can either use the product ID or the SKU as the reference field or the hook column. We don't need any of the others. Let's get rid of these. And let's use the SKU. And this is a good reason to have unique SKUs, is that you can actually use it as the identifier regardless of the software system you're using. So each of your sales channels have the same SKU for the same product. Although what I want to do is I want to group based on size. So I'm going to keep that in here for now. And what I'm going to do is actually change the name. And this is where the concatenate function again is very helpful. So we'll go with this, and then we'll stick that on the end of the name. So we now have a new set of names 42 inch you see running down to halfway, and then 44 inch. So we're going to create two different product groups here because there's two sets of names. So let's copy those, paste as values, and then we can delete these columns, and we've now got the SKU and the name. So that was another quick little bit of Excel jiggery, but it's very useful to know. So we're now going to create a new file, and we're going to call it update name from SKU. Let's go back into Brightpearl, create a data map, and you can have as many data maps as you like. Update name from SKU. So we've got two columns in here, the SKU and the name. Import this file. "15 products have been updated." So if we now do a search for wetsuit, and you'll see how Brightpearl is remembering our last search term, which saves a nice bit of time, and we've got the name updated on these particular products. And we now go into the variants, and we can see that we've only got half of them. There's only the 42 inches. We don't need the 44s. So that's another way to do it by spreadsheet. Hopefully that's given you a bit more of an indication of the speed with which you can do things if you've got the ability to data import. Okay, so Claire's asking when a variant changes, so say a supplier changes a color from navy to new navy, the product hasn't changed, we just need to update the actual value of the name. So there's a couple of options here. So your particular example of navy changing to new navy can be tackled in two ways. If all of the navy products need to be changed to new navy, then you can just go and edit the name, and this is the simplest option. It's probably the one that's least likely to happen in the real world, unfortunately, but let's say that, let's find a color here, color blue. Say that blue has changed to dark blue. All I need to do is go and change the name here, and all of the products that had been assigned to blue will now be assigned to dark blue. However, that's fairly unusual in that there's probably likely some products that still need to be called blue, so you'd want to create an extra option for dark blue and then move the products across to that. Now that's a fairly complex process, and we're slightly over time. Are we okay to push it another 5 minutes, Helen?
Yeah,
Yep, we're okay with that. Good, good. I'll show you how to do that because it can be quite confusing if you've not seen it before. So let's take a product that we can do this with. It's easier to show you on a smaller product group rather than a big one, but the principles are the same. So here we've got a small product group, the Neki Manitou kayak in yellow and dark blue. And let's go and edit these variants just to see what they're like in the group. So dark blue and yellow. Let's say we've got the yellow needs to be changed to bright yellow, but we need to retain the existing yellow here. So what I'd do is I'd go add color, create new color. I'm used to typing that too much. Bright yellow. And we now have an option here. What we need to do is effectively break this grid apart and then reassign these variants to the right colors. So let's remove color. There's a warning here that this is going to break the grid, and we now go back into the kayaks. Where are we? I want to approach it from a different way. Here we go, create variants. We choose color, and it's now going to be bright yellow, and I think the other one was ocean. No, it was dark blue. So we've now got this product group, and we need to assign the relevant SKU to the relevant variants. And this is where having a SKU is essential, and even more useful if the attribute name effectively of the colour is in the SKU itself. If it's not in the SKU itself, you can just do a quick lookup with your manufacturer's data set to see which of these SKUs relates to which colour. So let's say that the NMAN 1 is bright yellow and the NMAN 2 is dark blue, and then assign the options. So there, slightly circuitous route has actually changed yellow to bright yellow whilst retaining yellow for the other products. You can actually do that by spreadsheet as well. So that's the way you do it in the interface. But if you wanted to do it by spreadsheet, it'll be a lot quicker for a bigger product set. Hopefully that showed you what you needed to do there, Claire. I know you deal with fairly complex clothing products, so it's probably easier for you to work with spreadsheets and do a similar thing. You just need to rename the columns in your spreadsheet, and it'll do it all by magic. Well, thanks everybody. That's covered everything I wanted to cover today, at least, on products. I mean, there's not a lot you can cover in half an hour, but we hope to be running these a lot more regularly, and I'll just hand back to Helen to finish off.
Thanks very much for that. I hope everyone found that useful, and thanks very much for participating with your questions. If there's anything that you've not had a chance to ask or forgotten or comes to you after you've gone to make a coffee, then by all means send that through to success@brightpearl.com and we will point you in the right direction for the answers. Bryce, yes, we are recording this and we will be posting this on our YouTube channel shortly, and what I'll do is email that round to everybody after we've got that up and online. So once again, thank you very much. Like Chris said, we are hoping to pick up the pace of these webinars, get a few more out to you each month. Look out for the newsletter for June, which is coming out in the next couple of days, which will give you some dates on when the next webinars are happening. So I hope you all have a good evening, UK viewers, and a good day, USA customers. Thank you very much, and thanks to Chris. Bye.